This is a Fox News alert on a deadly winter storm and moving in and impacting millions of Americans. The same storm system that killed dozens of people in the last week, it is now barreling east. It has dropped ice and heavy snow over much of the central states, caused massive flooding and hundreds of flight cancellations, all during one of the busiest travel times of the year. This is Outnumbered, and I'm Melissa Francis, here today from the Fox Business Network. Elizabeth MacDonald, EMAC we like to call her. Jedediah Bila is with us as well. National Review columnist Katherine Timpf, and today's hashtag One Lucky Guy. We welcome back the former senator from the great state of Massachusetts, Senator Scott Brown, and he is outnumbered.
Uh-oh. Lucky me.
I like that, the great state of Massachusetts. Can you call it anything else?
Listen, it's a great state. It is a great state, and people there are wonderful. And it's great to see each and every one of you, and happy almost New Year to everybody.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, numerous winter storm warnings and advisories are in effect right now in parts of the country. As this storm that we are tracking moves across the Great Lakes, it is dumping a mixture of snow and sleet and freezing rain. And one of the big concerns, of course, is icy roads. Let's bring in meteorologist Janice Dean. Janice, tell us more about the storm.
You know, we were watching that flooding video that we received earlier on today, and that is kind of the moral of this storm right now. Even though the storm is exiting the northeast, we have rivers and streams out of their banks right now across the Mississippi and the Missouri River Valley. 50 miles south of St. Louis is where we have water out of the river banks. So this is one of the regions that we are watching, and this scenario is unfolding all across the Midwest today. So even though this storm is exiting, it's almost over, the threat continues for flooding well into the rest of this week and into the weekend. So I just want to point that out. Flash flood watches and warnings are posted for many states across the Midwest. And that's going to be one of the legacies of this storm, including the record-setting tornadoes that we saw 8 days in a row. So there's the last 48 hours. You can see that storm winding up, bringing snow, sleet, freezing rain, you name it, we had it. We've got the frontal boundary still draped across portions of the southeast. Ahead of it, warmer than average temperatures. Behind it, the cooler than average temperatures that are settling in. So across the northeast, we had a treacherous commute this morning for parts of the northeast up towards New England. They are getting the jackpot of snowfall totals across northern New England with over a foot, perhaps 2 feet of snow. And then as we settle into Thursday and Friday, a much quieter weather pattern, which we will welcome, of course. The forecast precipitation over the next couple of days, we're still going to see rain along that frontal boundary. No severe storms, though, which is great. And then, of course, we're going to see the potential for a foot or more of snow for the ski resorts for the new year. Okay, forecast highs for Tuesday, still very warm across the southeast. But as we head into Wednesday and Thursday, we'll start to moderate these temperatures. And really, as we head into the weekend, a much quieter zonal weather pattern, which is what we like to see. A quick look at your forecast for New Year's Eve. Of course, our big New Year's special with Kimberly Guilfoyle and Eric Bowling looking good across much of the country. The only area that we could see some showers and thunderstorms is along the Gulf Coast. And for New York City, nice temperatures, 40 degrees with mostly clear skies. Back to you, ladies and Senator.
All right. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Well, we're just over a month away from the Iowa caucuses, and with that date quickly approaching, Donald Trump finally ready to spend some money on advertising. Now, sources tell Fox News that the Republican frontrunner is willing to shell out, at least get this, $2 million a week to get his message out to early state voters. Mr. Trump spoke out about the plan yesterday at a rally in New Hampshire.
Starting around January 4th, we're spending a lot of money. I mean, the press is hearing this for the first time. They're going to go probably crazy, but we're going to spend a lot of money over the next 4 weeks, and we're going to don't want to take any chances. We're too close.
All right, Melissa, do you think this will work? You know, Donald Trump basically gets a lot of media coverage just tweeting from his apartment.
Well, you know, it's so true. Or picking up the phone and calling into various shows. And you notice when he's on TV, it's only because he's taken the golden escalator down from his apartment. So I don't think he has to put a lot of effort into it. Two things about this are interesting to me. I mean, number one, he's already on so much. You would think if he's going to do ad spending, what would be smart would be to go super negative on the competition in New Hampshire and in Iowa. And I would think that's how he would spend his money. But also, our very own Charlie Gasparino from Fox Business pointing out to me that he's making a lot of money off this campaign as well, a couple different ways. I mean, he's doing paid speaking gigs, I've read, in a lot of the places where he's stopping, but he also pays his entity's rent. The AP is reporting up to $1.4 million so far for renting out his own space that he owns for campaign headquarters and things like that. So, you know, the Trump is very smart with the dollars.
That's interesting. He is smart with the dollars. That's
smart
true.
with the money.
Senator, you know, he does still have the ringing message from both sides of the political aisle. Make America great again.
Yeah, who doesn't want that to happen?
Right.
I'm shocked. But most importantly, you're talking about doing ads. There's already a lot of white noise in New Hampshire because you have the Senate race that's running with Senator Ayotte, and then you have all the super PACs that are up already. I'm not sure if it's money well spent in New Hampshire in particular, because I would use that money in the ground game and get it all on the ground, literally getting his voters, those people that show up at the rallies. Hi, here's the bus. Give me your phone. We're going to call you. We're going to pick you up if we need to. And really, that's what it's going to be about getting out the voters.
Jedediah, what do you think we can expect? A lot of negative ads? Or
Oh, I think they'll be entertaining. You know, Republicans always do ads badly. I cry myself the deepest tears watching some of Jeb Bush's ads. I want to help him in so many ways. I think Donald will probably get these right. He will probably speak like a regular person. People at home will be sitting and saying, oh, that's something that I would agree with, or that's the way I would say it. I don't think money is going to determine this election. I think he's a little bit afraid of our friend Teddy Cruz and the way he's rising in the polls, and he feels like he needs to churn some money out there. He's thinking about Iowa. But this is an election where people aren't going to be bought. Jeb Bush has a ton of money. It's not doing him any good.
That's a good point. And, Kat, here's the thing, and you saw it in 04, 08, and 012. Within 4 days, nobody knew who the candidates were going to be, either for the Democrats or the Republicans. There was a race to the finish. Do you think he should go negative, or do you think he should hammer Hillary Clinton in these ads?
I don't think it matters because, like everyone's saying, he's always on TV, and a lot of the time, yeah, he's already being super negative. I mean, Donald Trump is everywhere. He's everywhere. I see so much of him. I've actually seen him in my dreams now, also. I had this dream the other night that I came back to my apartment. He was sitting there eating my cheese, and I was like, too much. Just me. I don't know.
That is just you.
All right, well,
you're the only one that had that dream.
Look.
Now we'll be having a buffet after you're done with this ad.
Who knows? But it's like I see him and talk about him more than anyone, and I don't know why he would. I guess money, of course, isn't an
Melissa,
issue.
what do you
why?
think? You think you should go negative? Even more negative?
I mean, I think that I agree with Senator Brown. I mean, I think that that's really what he needs to do, is to go in and spend it on the actual ground game. I think that's the thing that people are talking about where he may be vulnerable, is that he's not doing the things where you're actually busing people to the locations you want to make sure that they're going to show up. I don't think he needs any more media than he's already getting. And when he said before, it would be too much Trump, I'm already on all the time. Like, I think Trump was right about the too much Trump if you add it in. So, I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, we're going to move from Donald Trump to our friend Hillary Clinton. The State Department preparing to release the second to last batch of Hillary Clinton's private emails. But this time it won't be on a Friday at 5 p.m. Even better, the document dump will reportedly happen on New Year's Eve. How convenient. Thanks to a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, the agency gets to wait till the end of each month to release the documents. But this isn't the first time the Obama administration has released sensitive material during the holidays. On Christmas Eve, they released 16 pages of redacted emails related to Benghazi. You know, Senator, I am so tired of this nonsense. I mean, they assume that everyone's either asleep or partying with family, and it's just going to get swept up. It's under the rug. Isn't this the administration that touted transparency?
Yeah, well, first of all, how is she still running? It says that they're redacted. There are hundreds of nearly 9,000 pages expected to be classified. There's a guy in jail right now who worked for the State Department because he either lost or misplaced one. Yep. And now hundreds. Remember, she said none of them are classified. So once again, it's a different set of rules for her and for the Clintons and this administration. We'll see if in fact they're going to do their jobs. And are you surprised or shocked that it's coming out at this particular time? Yes, they are obligated to do it by the end of the month. They can do it whenever they want. They have this stuff. Let's go. Let's just stop the.
Well, what are we going to see? Half of them have been wiped out, right?
She's already determined what we're going to see.
No. We're talking about the beginning when they did the document dump. They removed half of them, and the real scandal here was the Clinton Foundation, right? And how the Clinton Foundation was closely tied to the State Department whether it was closely tied to the State Department activities. That's the scandal we're not going to find out about because, again, half of those emails were pulled before and not submitted to the government.
That's why I think O'Malley's in there still because of that. Sorry to interrupt, but I think O'Malley's there because he's just kind of waiting and saying, well, what if, what if, what if, what if? And who knows?
I actually think there's already so much out there. It's amazing that it isn't getting more traction. It isn't deterring more people. I mean, I think that it's already out there in most people's psyche that she's not an honest and upstanding player. And I agree with you, Emac. I actually think that they broke many more laws with relation to the foundation and pay for play and payola. There's already enough evidence out there, and nothing's really happening around it. And that's disheartening, but I don't see that changing.
I think, Kat, the problem is that people view politicians in general as so dishonest that even though they'll look at Hillary and say, she's dishonest, she lied, she didn't disclose this information, they sort of group all of politicians the same way, and they take that out when they consider who they're going to vote for. So is this really going to hurt her?
I don't think so. I think that the right way to look at it is for her specifically, this is not anything to be surprised about. Also, the debates, thanks to, you know, D-Dub Schultz, are always on Saturdays, so no one will watch them. She gives limited amount of press conferences. She's the only candidate that I've really seen the strategy is to have less of her for her to have a better chance and do better, which if that doesn't prove that she's the worst, then I don't know what
Well,
does.
you know, it did hobble her campaign in the beginning, the email dump.
Right.
It did. The sympathy for her turned after 11 hours of being grilled before the Benghazi committee. What can we expect? Will the FBI refer to the Justice Department and say, yes, we should prosecute Hillary Clinton for, you know, the mishandling classified information and obstruction of justice? Or the Justice Department can say, we're not going to prosecute, and then you see the FBI leaking. That's a storyline we're hearing
I
out of
actually think
Washington.
the drip, drip, drip has worked in her favor. You know, we thought that it coming out, you know, every single month was going to be something that was going to be the unrelenting drumbeat of what she had done in the past. But I think it's done the opposite. It's made the public immune to it. They're like, oh, another email
sick
dump.
of it.
Who cares?
Look what happened with General Petraeus, and, you know, it was pretty swift. Is she going to get any type of penalty for doing this? And she was the Secretary of State. She knew or should have known that everything she does, hey, what do you have for dinner? Where are you going for dinner? Where are the kids? That's all sensitive. She's the Secretary of State. She knew it.
Senator,
And a former First Lady.
Right.
Yeah.
What should Republican candidates do? Because I think a lot of them are baffled by the fact that this isn't pulling her down more. And they're concerned about, do American voters care about character? They say in polling that they care about trustworthiness and honesty, but it's not pulling her down enough. And Republican candidates aren't gaining the lead. So what should they do?
Well, it is actually working in New Hampshire. Bernie Sanders, I believe, will win New Hampshire regardless of what Bill Clinton does because of that. When you talk to people not trustworthy, not honest, out of touch with the average American, she's rebooted her campaign 4 times. And she should be just dominating this race, and she's not. And that's a problem for her.
Right. All right, well, we're going to see how big of a problem it is for her. Moving on, the so-called Affluenza teen busted. Ethan Couch and his mother taken into custody in Mexico. You'll recall, Couch claimed he was so rich and spoiled, he didn't know right from wrong when he killed 4 people driving drunk in 2013. So now, could the teen face jail time and finally learn some consequences? Plus, he campaigned on a promise of change. But new polls show Americans aren't satisfied that President Obama has fulfilled his pledge. And the clock ticks down on his time in office. And right after the show, catch more from the couch on the web. Join us for Outnumbered Overtime by logging on to foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click on the Overtime tab. Tweet us your questions, comments. Senator is waiting. Tell us what topic you want to hear more about from him.
You can run, but you cannot hide. A teenager serving 10 years probation for a deadly drunk driving accident is now back in custody along with his mother. Ethan Couch, you know him, he was known as the Affluenza teen, was arrested at a resort in Mexico. Officials have been searching for him ever since he failed to show up for a mandatory probation hearing on December 10th. Couch's case gained attention after his lawyers argued his privileged upbringing was to blame for the deaths of 4 people back in 2013.
Felt like at the time that the court system did not adequately assess any punishment or adequate punishment at least. And so when he then disappeared, obviously people in this agency who had to work that crime scene and deal with the victims' families and do everything they did took it very personally. So it was a very high priority for us to make sure that we found him and got him back.
Yeah, I'd say. Now, Couch and his mother, Tanya, seen here, are being extradited back to the U.S. Chief Correspondent Jonathan Hunt is live in Los Angeles with more. Jonathan.
Hey, Melissa, U.S. authorities have been working with their Mexican counterparts since the weekend, following a tip that 18-year-old Ethan Couch might be in the Pacific Coast resort of Puerto Vallarta, and that is indeed where he was found. His mugshot showing that he has dyed his normally blonde hair black. Couch was found with his mother, Tonya Couch. The two disappeared on December 10th after Ethan Couch failed to show up for an appointment with his probation officer. They apparently drove their pickup truck from their home in Texas to Puerto Vallarta.
What we suspected all along had happened, that they had planned to disappear, that they even had something that was almost akin to a going away party before they left town. Our suspicion that his mother was assisting him and helping him has proven true.
Back in June 2013, Ethan Couch, who was then 16 years old, was driving drunk and speeding outside Fort Worth, Texas, when he hit another car and killed 4 people. At his trial, his wealthy parents brought in a psychologist who testified that because Ethan Couch was spoiled by his family, he therefore did not know right from wrong or understand responsibility. The expert termed the condition Affluenza. It was widely ridiculed, but led to Couch getting probation rather than a prison sentence. Now, the sheriff and other officials made clear in that news conference today, Melissa, that they still believe the original sentence was far too light. The victims, they say, were denied justice. But they also admitted today that even with this probation violation, they cannot change that original sentence. And even if they can now switch the case to the adult court system, the longest Couch could be held for would be 120 days for this probation violation. So essentially, while the authorities are getting him back, this hasn't changed much. 120 days is still the most under Texas law that Couch can face in a Texas jail. Melissa?
Wow. That is an incredible story. Thank you so much for that. I mean, bringing it out to the Couch now, that I guess she kind of proved the point, Kat. You know, they were saying the defense was the parents hadn't taught him right from wrong by snatching him and running over the border. I mean, she's proving, the mother, that she doesn't know right from wrong and that she certainly isn't going to teach it to him.
No, and nobody's going to be able to teach it to him. This kid, he's never going to have any consequences. Even if he does, I mean, this is a person who justified killing 4 people by his life was too good. Are you kidding? He'll find a way to justify this. He'll find a way to justify anything. The kid's a nightmare. Okay, the bottom line, and there's nothing that's really going to be able to fix it. Even if he got the worst sentence in the world, he would never say it was his fault.
And EMAC, I mean, obviously one of the reasons why this case has gotten so much attention is because of, I mean, the outrage over it, but also this idea of the Affluenza defense that we hadn't heard before. G. Dick Miller is the psychologist who said the word at the trial, and he later said that he wished he hadn't used it because the lawyers have criticized what they say is the news media's narrow focus on the term in relation to the case. Once again, it's the media's fault.
Really, seriously, you don't think
it's not the kid?
Really, seriously, you don't think the media is going to do their job and cover the stupid things you say in court? Listen, this accident scene was so horrific it looked like an airplane crash. By the way, one of his friends was paralyzed for life. Was such a violent crash. He was 3 times the level of an adult, toxicity in his blood. I would say he should have gone to jail, in prison rather, the first time.
Right.
The question now is if he is not put in prison, or not just other people's lives, but his own life, he could, something bad could happen to Ethan Couch as well. Yeah. And you're right. What is going on with parents that they don't teach their children responsibility? You have to teach empathy and compassion at an early age to children.
Yeah, I mean, Senator, you're a parent. I mean, there were so many ways along the way. I mean, on one hand, when I very first heard the story, I was like, well, I guess if a child of mine, I mean, in her defense, although she has none, obviously, but trying to offer the other side here, we're in very deep trouble. You would grasp at straws to try and help them. But this proves the point that you have to learn the lesson at somewhere along the way, and it's a parent's responsibility to teach them to stand up and take responsibility for what you've done.
Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, we're in a society now where everybody's always blaming everybody else for their mistakes. Right. And since when do they take charge? It starts at the White House, quite frankly. It's the media, it's this person, it's that group. Everybody's at fault except for the individuals who are actually doing the negative things. In this case, yeah, he should get 120 days. See ya.
Yeah.
Right now. 120 days. And if you do it again, bang, another 120 days. Hopefully it'll add up to 10 years, which is probably what he deserves at least.
I'm surprised, Jedediah. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the law in this case. I'm surprised that I'm surprised that his penalty for violating his probation and then leaving the country isn't more. I mean, 120 days is amazing to me. Originally, I know that the prosecutors had requested a sentence of 20 years behind bars. Instead, the juvenile judge decided to put him on probation for 10 years, which outraged the families. He then, I don't know if we explained this part of the story, was seen in a video where he was having a party at home, it seemed. I mean, it looked like he was part of a beer pong. His lawyers argued
a drinking game.
Can't tell for sure from the video that that's him in there.
Yeah.
But obviously he was frightened enough that he and his mother fled over the border, even still now having been caught.
Yeah.
How could he only serve 120
I don't know.
days?
These families should be sick. They really should. I mean, 4 people died.
Yeah.
There's a sickness. There is a sickness in this country that any psychologist could use the idea that someone had a privileged upbringing to somehow justify that he went out and was irresponsible and killed people. That's a sickness now. There's a sickness that you blame everyone else when something's wrong, that you don't take personal responsibility. And what is going on with this mother? I mean, parents everywhere should look at this and say, by the way, this is insanity.
The father helped.
She should go to jail.
The father helped. The father helped assist the authorities to find them.
Of course, perfect family. All right. The holidays disrupted, severe storms, ice, and snow impacting millions of Americans. We're keeping an eye on the storms as they move across the country. And the State Department coming under fire for naming Bringing Peace to Syria. Bringing peace to Syria as one of its big achievements in 2015. What world are they living in? The department isn't backing down, and why they're calling the war-torn country a win?
Welcome back. As we come to President Obama's final year in office, it appears his campaign pledge to bring change has not worked out the way the administration may have hoped. Now, according to a new CNN ORC poll, there's 37% say Mr. Obama, President Obama, has brought positive change, but the same number says the president brought change for the worse, and 21% say none at all. Now, when it comes to the way the nation is governed, 3/4 are dissatisfied, according to this poll, while just a quarter say they are satisfied, and 69% are very or somewhat angry with the way things are going in the country. Now, Senator, we know people get very cranky, big pollsters, right? And they don't like the way things are going. We get that, and there's reason to feel that way. But, what does this mean for President Obama's legacy?
Well, that's the question du jour, because I think he will go down as one of the most divisive presidents in the history of our country. He's had opportunities to unite this country, but he always seems to be taking sides. And while that's not inappropriate, the sides he's been taking, I think, are wrong. Putting American interests first should always be the paramount. And it's not just black Americans, it's not just white Americans, it's all Americans. And there's been opportunities where he could have actually united this country behind him, and I think he's missed that opportunity.
Jedediah, are you seeing the polls showing a trend toward this kind of sentiment that we just reported from this poll, that while the president was hoping to have a really positive legacy, bailing out the auto companies, fixing the U.S. economy with a lot of taxpayer money and Federal Reserve help, do you think you see a trend besides this poll in other polls?
I do, and I actually recently wrote about a poll in Gallup where it shows that people distrust big government more than big business, more than other areas. They really have a deep distrust of big government. So that, to me, means that this is a great time for limited government advocates to come out and say, see all this stuff that he did that you don't like and that you're not happy with? My plan is the opposite. I have a different approach. I want to empower individuals. I don't want government dictating your health care and raising your taxes. And I want to do the opposite. And here's an opportunity
That's a good
for
point,
limited government folks to shine.
Here's the thing, Melissa. Another Rasmussen poll says, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are neck and neck, right? But Donald Trump has more independents, 36% to Hillary's 25%. You know, he did campaign as the reform candidate.
Yeah.
But what does this mean for Hillary? Should she be campaigning so tightly knitted to Obama's legacy?
I don't know. See, I actually think that his legacy is going to be a lot more positive than you guys think. I mean, I think two things will end up standing out. Number one, he is the first African-American president, and he will always have that, and you can't take that away from him, and you shouldn't. I mean, it is really something remarkable and something to be proud of. I think a big part of his legacy is going to be Obamacare. I mean, as it becomes one of those overwhelming, you know, entitlements in this country and starts to really drag on the government's budget, on spending everywhere, I think it's going to be one of those things like every other entitlement in this country that you can never take away.
Yeah, here's the thing, Kat. Yeah, we're talking a lot about domestic policy, but you've been covering this too. And the thing is, you know, in 2013, the president gave a speech saying all wars, including wars on terrorism, must end. But now we have the Mideast in flames and a refugee crisis. So that's part of his legacy too, right? What's going on overseas?
I think that's why he's trying to do as little as possible. If you look at his speeches, he seems a little concerned about his legacy because most of them are focused on how awesome he is and how great the things are that he's doing. And he's kind of probably hoping that a lot of people will just be taking his word for it rather than looking at what he's actually doing or not doing. Because if you were to listen to him talk about himself, you'd think he was totally crushing it. And I think a lot of people don't, right?
Here's the thing. And Senator,
I love the way you say things.
A lot of,
oh, thank you.
Well, his successes can be in some way seen as provisional, right? The triumphs, you know, whether it's Iran deal, that could fall apart. You know, Iran could renege on it. Cuba could not become the successful democracy we expect. And Obamacare could be unwound by a Republican president.
Yeah, one step forward, three steps back. Once again, you have the Iran deal. It's going to be, I think, the worst deal in the history of our country, ultimately, because we're dealing with terrorists, allowing them to export terrorism around the region and the world, continuing with nuclear development. You have the wars that we've talked about. We have a situation right now. I think the biggest failure is going to be in foreign policy, where our allies don't trust us, our foes don't fear or respect us. He drew that line and didn't do anything. In Iraq, he didn't leave a transitional force there, and as a result, we have a lot of what you're seeing now.
Speaking of foreign policy, the State Department is defending a claim that one of its accomplishments of 2015 was, quote, bringing peace to Syria. Spokesman John Kirby listed it as an achievement in a blog post recently. He even touched on ISIS, saying the United States is winning the fight against violent extremists. After coming under fire for that, here's what Deputy Spokesman Mark Toner had to say.
The operative word there is bringing, not brought. So we're bringing peace and security to Syria. I think that is a truthful claim. There has been significant process, we believe, in the past year on both fronts.
But GOP presidential candidate Jeb Bush had a different take. Take a look.
Look, with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State and Barack Obama as president, we've had a complete disaster. Now there are 4 million refugees that are creating big instability in the region and a breeding ground for jihadists all around the world. This has to be dealt with in Syria. And to suggest that Syria is at peace today, man, they're living in an alternative universe.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, Senator, with Jeb Bush here. I don't know what universe. I mean, other things they listed as positives, reestablishing ties with Cuba, the Iran nuclear deal, the climate deal. I mean, maybe they are on another planet, because all of these things, to me, were defined as a hot mess.
And if you look at the lack of support from Congress and the American people on each and every one of those things, it's virtually nil. And as we were talking earlier, you had a comment, and I'm saying to myself, what planet are they on? Because it's two different realities. When you actually talk to members of Congress or you talk to the American people, that's why Donald Trump's doing so well. Because he's saying, listen, we're losing, we need to be better, we need to, you know, make number one, a U.S. number one again.
It's not even two different points of view, I mean, which is what you would normally see left and right. This is like alternate reality when you look at it, and I love the way that Toner tried to justify it, like how the verb was conjugated. That's going to be their defense. It's like, we are bringing peace to Syria. Like, we understand that it's not ideal right now. And Kirby went on to say in the blog post that while the Syrian conflict has continued to unfold in tragic ways, the United States has given humanitarian aid and pushed for political
well, wait a second. You know, here's the thing. Foggy Bottom just didn't get foggier. I mean, the fog machine is really cranking up right now. That's what we're hearing out of the State Department. I just always am mindful of what the administration has said in the past to make a statement like this, where we've got two major wars breaking out on the president's watch, Mideast in flames and conflicts there escalating. Remember, in the beginning of his term, the president said we should try the 9/11 terrorists in U.S. courts, and that's when New York residents said, "Oh," and Congress had said, "Wait a second, you're not going to do that." That was a tone that was set right from the beginning, and they're still trying to set the tone that the American people are saying, wait a second, we really don't believe it.
Right. Yeah, Kat, do they think people are dumb? I mean, do they think no one turns on the news, no one's paying attention to the massive civil war in Syria, no one's watching the bloodshed? I mean, do they rely on thinking we're all ignorant?
Yes.
Thank you.
Either that, or they're delusional, or they're nuts. Because the only way that saying we're bringing peace to Syria would be okay is if they were saying is some sort of like inspirational affirmation in the mirror, like we're bringing peace to Syria, visualize, or if that was
like
what
the
they
Wizard
were
of Oz
into
type.
spiritually.
Maybe that's what it was.
Maybe, but that's the
That
defense
makes
he
sense.
should have gone with. I was meditating. But that's because, the war there, the civil war, humanitarian crisis, and it's all getting worse. And to say that you're bringing something, you actually have to be bringing it as in making it better, not worse. It's insane.
If you look at, Melissa, if I may, 10,000 people, I remember questioning Kerry, hey, when are we going to do something? 10,000 Syrians killed by Assad, and now you have over, what, 200,000, and here we are. To say it's peaceful now is a joke.
And it's kind of like, I mean, we are sort of laughing, but it's not even remotely funny. I mean, it's like an insult to the people who have died in Syria. It's an insult to the Christians who have been slaughtered, who have been beheaded. I mean, to the towns
and the refugees
who
are
all
now
our
intelligent
to say that they're bringing peace. I mean, it really, I can't even imagine how those people would feel about it hearing those words. They would say, thanks a lot.
I think when it comes to foreign policy, though, your legacy, it speaks for itself. It's very hard to gloss over. I think they'd love to be able to say that things are a success and have them be that way. But history books record deaths. They record when people cease to exist. They record the murder of Christians. They record terrorism.
It's true.
And they're going to record the fact that it happened on this president's watch. So I think as we were talking before about legacy and we talked about Obamacare, when it comes to national security, I think this administration's in big trouble.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do. I always agree with everything you say.
You do? Oh, wow. I feel special now. All right. The Yankees are sparking lots of outrage after trading for a pitcher accused of abusing his girlfriend. Whether the trade is really something to celebrate coming up. Plus, they broke up months ago, but now there are reports that Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner are still living together for the sake of their kids. Is it a smart move or not? We're going to debate that. And right after the show, head to the web for Outnumbered Overtime. We'll be waiting for you, so don't disappoint us. Log on to foxnews.com/outnumbered. Click the Overtime tab. Send us your questions, your comments. Tell us what topic you want to hear more about. Twitter, Facebook, jump on that live chat. We're here, and we are waiting. Don't disappoint.
The New York Yankees facing backlash after trading for controversial closer Aroldis Chapman. Back in October, Chapman was accused of choking his girlfriend and pushing her against the wall during an argument. He's also accused of firing 8 shots in his garage following the dispute. Despite the accusations, the Yankees are celebrating the move on Twitter, posting a GIF of Chapman striking a batter out. Yankees general manager Brian Cashman responding to the outrage saying, quote, "Certainly there are some serious issues here that are in play, and that's why obviously it's going to play out. I acknowledge that it's an area of concern certainly reflected in the asking price. And there's a risk." Emac, so he says it's reflected in the asking price. I got a deal because the guy's got some shade coming his way.
Yeah, well,
does that make it okay?
Here's the issue. No criminal charges, by the way.
No, that's true.
But he could still be suspended under Major League Baseball rules. So that's what I think Mr. Cashman is referring to. That's reflected in the asking price. We don't know. I think it's a multi-million-dollar contract. But the question is, I mean, he's got quite an arm there. He does come with a lot of baggage. So the issue is, will they have to take him out of play because he's suspended?
Yeah. I mean, it was enough to scare away the Reds and the Dodgers. Senator, I'll ask you. I mean, I'm thinking that you're not a Yankees fan, being from Boston. Maybe it's up to the MLB. I mean, the MLB still has to go and make a decision. If they say it's okay, maybe it's okay.
Well, first of all, there is a process, not only a criminal process, but there potentially is a civil process. It's unlikely, but there is an MLB process. And I don't care because I am a Red Sox fan. Just full disclosure.
Right.
That being said, it's business. He's an athlete. He's a good athlete. They probably got the best value for the dollar. They have basically 3 solid closers now. Take your pick, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and they're going to be tough to beat again this year.
Okay. Kat, I mean, do they have a responsibility? Athletes, I mean, this is the larger question, and this is what people talk about, and I'll ask you as well, Jedediah. This is what people talk about in football and all professional sports, that you have kids who are looking up to these guys as heroes, and their conduct off the field, because they're public people, counts as people follow them. I mean, I think anybody on television certainly feels like that your conduct off TV counts for something. Isn't it way more so with athletes, especially when it comes to women?
Maybe it should be, but it's not. Sports teams generally care more about winning than the moral code of their players in any sport. And if you have any kind of excuse where you can say why it shouldn't matter, like you said, there's no criminal charges, so they can say, hey, see, well, we don't know that he did it. They're going to use that reason if they think it's going to help them win.
Yeah. Look, I love the Yankees. Sorry, Senator. We'll have to do this one out. Next time we do boxing gloves.
That's why I'm sitting between you.
This is why she's sitting between us.
They're a dynasty. Okay,
listen, we'll work on it. We'll work on it. But character has to play a role. I agree with you, Melissa. I think a lot of kids look up to these guys. This is a guy who reportedly told police that he choked his girlfriend. You have to have some standard. These people are paid a lot of money, and oftentimes they get endorsements. You have kids in school that are dressing up as Halloween, wearing their jerseys, wearing their uniforms. Bear some responsibility. There are a lot of really good players in this world. You have an option. You don't have to put someone front and center that has this kind of past, because guess what, Yankees? It's a reflection on you and your choices. Other teams did pass. They made that decision probably based on character and association they didn't want with their team. So, you know, you already have A-Rod. You really need another problem.
It's interesting you say that. It's interesting you say that. If you don't like him, don't buy his jersey. Don't go to the game that he's pitching.
But it's more than not liking him. I mean, this is a serious accusation.
If you're looking at role models, you know, look at your mom or dad or your coach or your teacher or somebody.
Come on, this is more than not liking somebody. This is a big accusation.
You're talking about role models, though. Well, it's an accusation.
No, we're talking about a pattern of athletes who have violence against women, and the idea that overall there are so many athletes, professional athletes, that have been accused of some sort of violence against women. It starts to become part of the brand and part of the stereotype, and it starts to be more acceptable to kids. And I think that's the concern. But money wins, winning wins, and that's what matters to the franchise. We'll leave it there. The latest on the severe weather creating a travel nightmare for those trying to return from their holidays, as flights across the U.S. are either canceled or delayed. And one celebrity ex-couple looking more like a family again, at least in pictures, for the sake of their children. Is this a good idea? We're going to discuss this one when we come back.
It was one of the most high-profile splits of the year. Actors Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner. The couple broke up in June after being married for 10 years, but People magazine is now reporting that the two still live together and even spent Christmas together, all for their 3 children. Garner reportedly sleeps in the main house with their kids, while Affleck lives in the guest house. One source is saying the couple's making a big push to let the kids know that they'll always be a family.
So
See, look,
can I throw up now?
You see, I'm not a. Yeah, okay. I was wondering what you thought. I was wondering what you thought, Senator, because I'm not a parent to anything. I mean, I have a cat, but I'm not a parent to anything.
You're a parent.
They're saying that they're doing it for the kids, but then they're also saying they're annoyed at each other all the time. Do you think that's a good environment for
They're annoying
for kids?
me, okay? I'm annoyed. Okay, who cares? Who cares? How many average Americans are struggling with keeping their families together and paying the bills? They're multimillionaires. Who cares? I'm sorry, I'm not saying another word.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm a parent. Let me weigh in and help you out here. You know, you look at what they're doing. I think there are so many couples and families out there, sadly, that are in this same situation, that you go through the breakup and then try and figure out how can you still do things and coexist and be with your kids. They're trying to share a space, which I actually think is a terrible idea, because your kids just see you hating each other. And even if you try to be fake nice, kids know exactly what's going on all the time, and they can tell from the tone in your voice and the strain in your grimace that you can't stand the sight of this other person. But, you know, these were two that seem to be, at least in the media, about their kids and about family, and they're trying to, you know, sort of both be there. You're gagging. Okay,
he's physically gagging on the camera. Just so the audience knows, Senator Scott Brown is gagging right now. He's physically having a reaction to what we're saying.
I think people do this. People do even weirder stuff than this, too. Couples, they do all kinds of weird stuff. I tend to be no judges about whatever, but I could never do it. I mean, this wasn't like, oh, we like different things. This was like the nanny thing, right?
Yeah. But you know what? It's almost like it's their business.
Right,
it's the couple's business. What, I mean, it's not, why should we be weighing in on what they personally decide? But you're right. The priority are the children.
Right.
And maybe they communicate fine in front of the children. We don't know.
Yeah,
right?
It depends how they do it, because you're right. Kids are so perceptive.
It's happening. And then, Gwyneth
they
Paltrow,
are. They're like,
she's doing the same thing.
Everything.
It seems like a lot of people think this is a great idea. So maybe it is a great idea. Like I said, I don't know. I have no husband and no children. So it's okay.
What?
I'm very happy.
Let's fix that right now on national TV.
I do not want that. I do not want that.
Right.
You said you have a cat, though.
I do.
So
I know. There you go. You say, why are we even talking about this? I mean, it's Schadenfreude. We all like to sit there. You see a celebrity couple. It seems to have everything. I mean, these two, they were always so happy, and he's thanking her in the Oscar, or not forgetting her, I think, in the Oscar speech. But they're so cheerful, and then they have these beautiful children. And of course, when everything goes awry, people in the public are delighted because they were jealous all along. And we like to, we don't want to think that celebrities are better than us. And lo and behold, they're not.
I think you just made a great case for why we're talking about it.
There you go. All right. More Outnumbered in just a minute, so stick around.
welcome back. We want to thank you guys for joining us. Senator, you survived another episode of Being Outnumbered.
Someone had to do it. Might as well be me. I'll be on with Maria Bartiromo tomorrow, so hopefully you'll tune in.
Forget politics. If you can do this, I feel like you can do anything.
Every single day. I'm going to call Roger after this. Say, Roger, please, I'll just be in the studio. I don't care.
And people are already logged into overtime. I want to say, folks are saying out there that we're not monitoring it. Yes, we are. We're reading every single comment. We're going to do it right after this.
We're staying right here for Outnumbered Overtime on the web. FoxNews.com/outnumbered. Click the Overtime tab. We are back tomorrow. Happening Now starts now. Welcome, everyone, to Outnumbered Overtime. Senator Scott Brown is still here. We're going to talk to him a little bit more about Jennifer Garner. He seemed to really enjoy
No, it's not her.
Yeah, he loved that topic.
I like her. I hate him. I'm sorry. He's just he's such
that was it. You don't like him.
That's
How come you don't like him?
Listen, he's a Massachusetts guy. I just think he's just too full of himself. And the fact that he's, cheating on his gorgeous wife or doing whatever.
Yeah.
It's just
also a gorgeous nanny. I don't know why you do that to your family. Have a hot
Talk
nanny.
about creating the problems. They're self-created.
Yeah. Senator, talk to me about 2016. People are saying this is a three-person race right now. This is a Rubio, Cruz, Trump race. What do you think about that?
I think that's true. And in New Hampshire, you have to add Christie. I have him coming in second. Trump, Christie, Rubio, Cruz, and then probably Carson, Bush in that order. But there's still time, about 42 days left in New Hampshire. And people have made a couple of comments, which you probably say, what do you know? Well, listen, with all due respect, I was born there, 9th generation. I know New Hampshire, know the people running. Have had 10 of them to my house in the backyard barbecues. And I can tell you the ground game is where it's at.
So you think Trump wins New Hampshire, even though he's not doing that much on the ground?
Yeah, right now, I think he does just because it's Trump. But it's going to be closer, I think, than you might guess. And there's still time for that to change. And with respect, Chris has been there almost every day. He's done 50 town halls. He did get the endorsement from the union leader, which Trump poo-pooed, but in reality, that still means a lot in New Hampshire. It has a lot of tradition, and people traditionally make up their mind 5, 6, 7 days out.
So you're saying ground forces really matter versus Trump not having a lot of ground
absolutely
forces,
matters. Right? And you have right now 50%, 56%, I think is the last number I saw, of people undecided in New Hampshire. And it really starts in New Hampshire, whether you like it or not. And what Cruz and others are waiting for, Huckabee in particular, and Rand, is that southern swing, hoping they can hang on till then, and that's where they'll really start to see where everything flies. Because right now we're in the kind of the Northeast, with the big race starting.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling through the overtime tab here because there are a couple of people on there that accused us of not looking at it, and that's not true. We are looking at it, and we are logged in. A lot of people talking about the case of the teenager who went, south over the border and tried to escape while he was on
the knucklehead, yeah.
The knucklehead, yes, couch.
Nightmare.
Some money has always made a difference. The rich are eccentric while the poor are just crazy. They are missing a key point. I think you are talking about us here on the couch. The accident happened when he was a minor. He was not tried and convicted in adult court. His high-priced lawyers were able to keep everything regarding his case to be judged in family court, even though in 10 years he'll be an adult and he's almost untouchable for now. This is a case that the Affluenza teen who used the defense that his parents, his lawyers used the defense that his parents never taught him right from wrong. And when we saw him, online, we don't know for sure that it was him, and that's their defense, saying that there was a beer pong tournament going on online. It looked like he was a part of that.
Well, that will work it could work in family court, talking to lawyers about it. It clearly did work. In other words, that he needs rehabilitation, not go to jail. And it was a shockingly awful defense. I mean, it just brought out like the worst kind of thinking about really that he's going to get off because he's too rich. At the worst possible time in this country, we have class warfare going on.
Don't they elect
but could he use that defense in adult court? No.
But even if you look at some kids in disadvantaged families that get arrested, a lot of them don't have the most perfect family situations where they're learning things and they get thrown in jail.
Right.
So yeah, it is about money.
No, it is about money. And if you look at what, Ethan Couch, what his mother did when she took him over the border and dyed his hair, obstructed justice, fled from the law, tried to hide him. I wonder what kind of penalty she's going to face.
Well, they put out an arrest warrant for her.
Yeah. But at this point, is it a fine? Is it probation? Or do they actually send her to jail?
Well, it's obstruction of justice,
People would love to see her go to jail. That's a fully grown woman who made these decisions. It's a disgrace.
It doesn't fall far from the tree in that she's doing everything. I guess maybe the decision was right. He is spoiled. It's clear that she's obviously,
Yeah, Melissa, you made that point. It is true.
Yeah, in fact, they proved the point that she really didn't ever teach him right from wrong. If she's sitting there and she thinks it's okay to then take him and run. And
to run after just because of a video. There's no proof. I mean, just going through the whole process.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, just to get her, it's amazing. Some of the other topics that I'm looking for, let's see. Senator Brown, why do you believe, what is the real reason that Trump has drawn the majority of votes?
Their votes, have they been cast yet?
That's true. Wait
a minute, did I miss something?
You fell asleep.
Oh, he's already drawn the votes. Well, with respect, he hasn't drawn the votes. Okay, we're polling, and with respect, once again, polling goes up and down and all around. You don't know if you're getting live, you're getting plants, how they're doing the polling. It's not over till it's over.
Yeah,
period.
Yeah, definitely.
It's 50% plus one.
A lot of people right now online, the topic of money and of this kid got them talking about money and how hard it is for people out there, and that maybe we were talking about the legacy of the Obama administration and making the point that 2 out of 3 households have less than $1,000 in saving. This is Stu P that was saying this. Gas prices drop. We should be seeing people with more money in their pockets. Instead, due to the increased cost of things like food and clothing, people aren't even able to get caught up. EMAC, you and I cover business every day, and folks are saying as we discuss, the legacy of the Obama administration, that things in these 8 years really haven't improved for so much of the middle class.
It's been 2% growth. We haven't seen 3.3% growth, I think, in about 11 years. Yeah, that is a legacy. And, when then you have a Bernie Sanders saying, I want to give you $20 trillion worth of free stuff. And how are you going to pay for that when the top 20% pay 84% of federal tax revenues? I think the American people have been tapped out for some time, and that's not even counting healthcare costs still going up in college tuition.
I just worry about when we talk legacy about history books and who writes those history books. And even as I was hearing myself talk before, I'm saying, hold on a second. A lot of this is going to rest with academia and their revisionist history. And you go back and all of a sudden Jimmy Carter becomes a hero and Ronald Reagan, the devil with horns, because that's their perception. And then that's what gets spread around. So somehow Obamacare, all of the issues that people have had will somehow be pushed under the rug, and they'll be talking about how many people got insurance. And so I worry about how much of what's actually happening, the reality of what people have been suffering through when it comes to this administration, will be recorded in history, and what that legacy will actually look like as a result.
And Melissa, you and EMAC have talked about obviously low gas prices. And why is that not being reflected in transportation costs with airline tickets going down, train tickets going going down, the cost of goods going down. They're just pocketing the businesses. I believe are just pocketing the money. It's not being, or is it going to pay for Obamacare? Is it going to pay for all the rules and regulations?
But it's the president's exasperated teachers faculty lounge outlook, where he's so vexed by the fact that he's got all the answers and you American people, you just don't see it. He was going to be the guy who was going to turn down the rhetoric on Islamic terrorism. He was going to dial back the George Bush's, the Bush administration's legacy in the Middle East, and it just didn't happen. Reality steps in, and the choices that the president makes has as Jedediah has pointed out, we've all said, has far-reaching complications and implications for the ensuing presidents. And whether or not the thing is, we should have stayed in the Middle East. We should, after that Sunni awakening, as the senators pointed out.
Should have left a transition force there. We would not have been in the situation we are now. We should have done something when the red line was crossed.
And so his legacy is a rise of ISIS. Is that it?
I'm just worried. I'm thinking about how this is going to translate to votes, because we're talking about people having issues with big government. We're talking about his polling not being so great, concerns about his legacy. If a Republican doesn't win in 2016, given that's a real problem for the party. I mean, in the same way that Barack Obama shouldn't have been reelected, given what the country looked like, the economy and national security at the time, that should have been a Republican win. So I think it's time for Republicans to do some self-reflection as they approach the election. And this needs to happen for the party, or the party's in big trouble. People are going to start to say, if you guys can't make it happen, given this, when can you make it happen?
They're going to show us another lesson. They showed Mitt Romney a lesson. Now they're going to show Donald Trump a lesson. Listen, enough of the lessons. You're either a Republican or you're not. You're either going to vote Republican. If not, Hillary Clinton's going to be the president. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
Senator, you said, though, that you see Bernie Sanders winning. What was it?
New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire.
Absolutely. And potentially Iowa. That's not over. Yeah, because it's an open primary, and all the independents are going to play in the Republican primary because there's so many choices. And that leaves the ultra-left liberal, crazy Democrats voting in New Hampshire. And they're going to vote for Bernie because Hillary, they don't like her, they don't trust her. She's in with Main Street, Wall Street, and the big banks, and the big pharma, and Bernie's everything but that.
Oh, Bernie Sanders. He's such a cartoon, but he's so lovable.
Listen, I don't agree with anything he says or believes in, but I respect him because he believes what he believes, and he's not looking at polling like Hillary and others. So
that is true. That's a good point.
It's true. That's how a lot of people feel about Donald Trump as well. I feel they feel like no matter what comes out of his mouth, even if sometimes you're like, wow, did he say that out loud?
Well, he's funding his own campaign. He doesn't have
Bernie
super PAC
Sanders
or
is
PAC.
Awesome. Like, he's a great dude, nice dude, but if only he understood how the economy worked. Bummer that he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope this has been fun. It's good. In case you ever want to run for president, this is, duking it out with us. I mean, there's no better practice than forget about politicians. They can't handle us anyway. Thank you all for joining us. We are going to be back tomorrow. More Outnumbered OT. We love you. Happy New Year, and we'll see you soon.